Epilogue, 6 months later. The Nutritional Research Initiative had evolved far beyond anything Gary could have imagined when he reluctantly agreed to coordinate it. What had started as Herb's fermented fruit experiment had grown into a comprehensive program involving over 40 different species and 3 separate research sites. Gary found himself maintaining detailed records of dietary experiments, digestive adaptations, nutritional discoveries, and what Dr. Bercia had started calling behavioral modifications associated with dietary diversification. The official findings were impressive enough. They had documented over a dozen previously unknown nutritional compounds, identified optimal fermentation processes for various plant materials, and developed safe protocols for gradual dietary expansion across species lines. The unofficial findings were even more interesting. Predator-prey relationships had become more complex but less adversarial. Territorial conflicts had decreased significantly, and overall community cooperation had reached levels that Gary would have thought impossible 6 months earlier. "Gary," Herb called out as he approached the main research station, where Gary was reviewing the latest batch of experimental results. "I have news." "Good news or Gary's going to need a drink news?" Gary asked, without looking up from his notes. "Good news. Dr. Bercia says our research has attracted attention from other regions. There are delegations coming from 3 different valleys to observe our methods." Gary looked up. "Delegations?" "Representatives from other dinosaur communities who want to learn about our dietary research program." "Herb, that's—" Gary paused, realizing he was about to say something positive about one of Herb's ideas. "That's actually really exciting." "I know, and the best part is they're bringing their own regional plant varieties to share. We're going to have access to completely new categories of fermentable materials." Gary made a note to warn Dr. Bercia about the incoming flood of experimental subjects. "There's more," Herb continued. "Rex thinks we should document everything we've learned and create some kind of comprehensive guide for other communities." "A guide to what?" How to revolutionize your ecosystem through questionable dietary choices?" "The Comprehensive Manual of Interspecies Nutritional Cooperation," Herb corrected. "Rex suggested the title. He says it sounds more professional." Gary had to admit that it did sound more professional. "And," Herb added, his eyes gleaming with familiar enthusiasm, "I've been thinking about our next research direction." Oh no. What if we could apply the same principles to other aspects of dinosaur society? Like, what if we could use cooperative research methods to solve other problems? Gary looked at his friend, who was clearly on the verge of proposing some new elaborate scheme. "Herb," Gary said carefully, "what kind of other problems?" "Well, there's territorial disputes, resource allocation, seasonal migration patterns, interspecies communication." "Herb." "Climate adaptation, predator-prey relationship optimization, collaborative defense strategies." "Herb." "The applications are endless, Gary. We could revolutionize dinosaur civilization." Gary put down his notes and looked at Herb with a mixture of exasperation and genuine affection. "You know what?" Gary said finally. "Let's finish documenting the nutrition research first. Then we can talk about revolutionizing civilization." "Deal," Herb exclaimed. "But Gary, just imagine what we could accomplish if we really put our minds to it." Gary looked around the research station, bustling with dinosaurs from different species working together on projects they couldn't have imagined a year ago. In the distance, he could see Rex and Carla collaborating on what appeared to be an advanced fermentation technique, while Stella provided commentary from her supervisory position in a nearby tree. "Yeah, Herb," Gary said with a smile. "I think I can imagine." As the sun set over what had become the most unusual research facility in natural history, Gary reflected on the strange journey that had brought them all here. It had started with one dinosaur's completely absurd theory about plant consciousness, and evolved into something that was actually changing how different species understood and interacted with each other. The plants probably weren't running a conspiracy to control the ecosystem, but they had certainly provided the catalyst for creating something unprecedented, a community built on curiosity, cooperation, and the willingness to be wrong about important things. Gary made a final note in his research log. Day 183 of the Nutritional Research Initiative. Status? Somehow, still working. Herb's latest idea? Only moderately insane. Recommendation? Proceed with cautious optimism. He closed the log and headed toward the evening meal, where tonight's menu would feature both traditional vegetation and 3 different varieties of experimental fermented fruit, served with a side of philosophical discussion about the nature of dietary boundaries. It wasn't the life Gary had planned, but he had to admit it was considerably more interesting than his old routine of eating plants and avoiding predators. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he was already curious about Herb's ideas for revolutionizing dinosaur civilization. After all, if eating fermented fruit could lead to unprecedented interspecies cooperation, who knew what other impossible things might turn out to be merely improbable? The end.